Okay, video 3 of the day, still on Acts 18. Paul had such a phenomenal ministry, yet even though he was rejected by the Jewish people in the city of Corinth, and he was so annoyed by that, he actually shook his garment and said, "Your blood will be on your own heads." And then he walked out, and then he said, "For now, I'm innocent. For now, I'll go to the Gentiles." But little did you know that the next verse onwards, verse 7, Acts 18, verse 7, and he left there, went to a house of a man named Titus Justus, a worshiper of God. And then verse 8, Crispus, the ruler of synagogue, believed in the Lord together, all this entire household. Even though he shook his garments and walked out in anger and said, "Your blood on your own head," which is a heavy statement, the leader, the ruler of the synagogue, believed in Jesus Christ. How about that for anointing? And his household, and many of the Corinthians hearing Paul believed and were baptized. There's more than the wildest dream of any evangelist or any preacher, any pastor to be so effective. He was trying to convince that Jesus is the Messiah. At that time, remember, there was no New Testament books. He wrote half of the New Testament books himself. But then again, he quoted Torah and all this, and he argued with them. Boy, I'm telling you, the Lord's anointing was upon Paul. No wonder he was chosen. No wonder he's so effective, because he was chosen. Not because he was so effective that he was chosen, but because he was so effective because he was chosen by the Lord. The Lord saw something in him, obviously. But you know that this is a dream. I pray that God will anoint us, that we too will be able to experience some of that anointing. Many of the Corinthians hearing Paul believed and were baptized. I say just now, right, that Paul argued. You see that? Verse 4. Paul reasoned in the synagogue every Sabbath and tried to persuade Jews and Greeks. Try to persuade them every week. These days, I can't go to the pulpit anywhere I go. There's the synagogue at that time. Today, the equivalent will be church. Even though I am trained, I've got master divinity, I can't just go up to the church and say, "Hey, I like to preach," or whatever. There's no pulpit. We have changed. Besides, I don't have the kind of anointing that Paul had. Charlie Kirk just passed away. He had, millions of people following him. That's great. But you know what? I hope that God will unleash another wave of spiritual awakening now that with the martyrdom of Charlie Kirk. And I pray God will uphold his church and glorify his name.